So the question of the day is, should we eliminate the Electoral College and go with a national popular vote for the president? There have been a couple of elections in the past 20 years, two to be specific, 2000 and 2016, where the person who got fewer votes won the presidency. So the one person got a plurality of votes, meaning more than anybody else, not necessarily 50%, and the other person got the presidency. And people don't like that. Some people don't like that. Some people say, well, that's anti-democratic. That cuts against democratic ideas. So we should eliminate the electoral college and go with a national popular vote. I'm assuming also then we would eliminate the delegate system for primaries, super delegates, but also regular delegates, and go with a population or a popular vote based means of choosing the candidate for the nomination. Okay, so this is a map of the population density of the United States by county. And what we see is that there's a huge amount of variance. Down here, the white areas are areas where very, very few people live. And then here are areas where a whole lot of people live. So, for example, this is Albuquerque, New Mexico, Phoenix, Las Vegas. Then we have our major population centers in California, etc. So what you want to think about is then strategically, if that were the case, where do the candidates go? Right now, candidates like to spend time in New Hampshire because there's the electoral college votes from New Hampshire, and that's can be key for the general election. But if it's popular vote based, then the candidates are going to spend their time in the areas that have the most votes. Why on earth would you spend any time in Wyoming, for example? There's no people who live there. Or Montana. It takes time to get from population center to population center, and there aren't even that many people living in these population centers. So you don't want to go there. You want to spend your time in California. That's where you're going to get the votes. Moreover, that's where you're going to get the money to run ads. So the idea is that the candidates would shift to spending the vast majority of their time, in fact, I would say all of their time, in densely populated areas. So the Democrats are going to spend their time here, then they'll fly over here and go here for a little while, Philadelphia, Boston, New York City, New Jersey, and then back to California. Maybe they go up to Seattle and then back to California. The Republicans, meanwhile, will spend a lot of time in Dallas area. Maybe, well, where else can they go? Probably Texas. They probably just stay in Texas, right? That's where they're gonna be. Maybe they go over to Salt Lake City. Now, you could think, well, that's fine, right? I mean, well, that's where the people live. We want candidates and the president to represent the people, and if more people live in California and New York City, well, then that's where they should go. Okay, so think about this. Let's say that happened, and that's where the candidate spent their time. Median voter theorem tells us that the candidates will look to represent the median voter of the population. Now we'll assume then we'll make a couple of adjustments to that, and we'll assume that the candidates are soaking in the words of the voters that they encounter. So they're taking positions according to the voters that they really want to get voting for them. Well, those people happen to live again here and here for the Democrats, here for the Republicans. Well, that means that they have ideological positions that may be different than what the median voter of the country as a whole would be. So if we think about the entire country, right, and we do a map or a little um, line, right, for the entire country, and this is the most liberal, and this is the most conservative, this is the moderate or whatever. So where's California on this? Where's San Francisco in particular on this, or even Los Angeles? Well, it's probably about right here in terms of the median voter of the United States, because San Francisco as a whole probably is like this here, right? Okay, where's Dallas? Well, Dallas, I would say is about right here. So what I would say based on that is that the Democrats are going to take positions around here because that's where they need to get the votes for the primary and then the general election. This is where their actual biggest demographic will be in terms of maximizing their voters. That's the key. Maximize your voters, right? So that's where you're going to take your positions. For the Republicans, this is where you're going to take your positions. And again, you can say, well, okay, fine. Okay. Now here's the thing. One of those two people wins. And let's say the Democrat wins. Okay, so the Democrat gets into office. This is their ideological ideal point. So the problem is that they have the Senate, and we'll assume that we haven't changed the Senate, so still two senators per state, every state. Well, that means that there's this broad range of senators, and ostensibly the ideal point of the median voter in the Senate is probably still relatively closer to the center. In fact, I would say that is the case today. It's not quite in the center, but it's probably in this area here. Well, that's pretty far away from either of these two people. The Democrat had to take positions pretty far to the left, and the Republican had to take positions fairly far to the right. Meanwhile, the median voter in the Senate is much closer to the middle. What this means in practice is it would be very hard to get legislation done because the Democrat is positioned over here, or the Republican is positioned over here. Well, to pass things through the Senate, you actually need to be a little bit closer to the middle, and you're not. That's just not who you are. So the means of selecting the president would actually choose a president who ideologically was in a position to where you would be unable to actually pass a lot of legislation in practice due to the ideal point of the Senate. Remember, in order to pass legislation, you have to get the Senate on board, you have to get the, well, yes, Senate, you have to get the House on board. Now, the House tends to be a little bit more ideologically polarized because there's no filibuster, etc. The Speaker of the House tends to enjoy much more powers than the Senate Majority Leader has. So as a result, passing through the Senate wouldn't, or passing through the House wouldn't be so hard. Lovely line there. Because basically, you probably need to be about right here. That's relatively easy for the president to get to, right? But this is harder. So my contention is that the consequences of choosing the president through a national popular vote would be an ideologically more extreme president who would be unable to get most of his or her legislation through the Senate because of the differences in ideal points. And you could say, well, fine, we'll accept that. It still is the will of the people. We're still getting to a more democratic selection mechanism. Okay, that's okay. You can have that position, but I think it's good to entertain the consequences of potential actions and potential changes in institutional features in elections. So that's it.